Welcome back to the Eduverse Enigma podcast. This week, we're chatting with XpertVR's newest partner, Robb Hartlen, ex-police officer and the founder of Overwatch Specialty Service. This episode, we'll be diving into law enforcement and police training, VR technology and how it's impacting learning, and a daily dose of Star Wars interesting facts. You won't want to miss it.
All right, welcome back to the Eduverse Enigma podcast. Very excited today that we have Robb Hartlen from OSS, one of our new partners with XpertVR, on the podcast. Robb, welcome.
Well, hey, no, welcome to the inner sanctum, if you will. I've been watching your guys' podcasts since we've partnered up. A lot of great information, so I guess I'm the honored one to see if I can extol any of the silliness or virtues that we have noodling around up here. But yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Love it. And yeah, on that note, where are we right now?
Okay, so we are it would be the old OSS office. We've slowly been moving in. So we moved into the new office. This right now is the basement of my house. So it's a combination of all the important things, from gifts from my son to a couple collectibles. You've got to be a Star Wars fan to at least come through the front door. You have to pass 3 Star Wars trivia questions before you're allowed to sit on the couch. So you did very well. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad I passed so we can actually record the podcast. Awesome. And so I guess in your own words, who is Robb Hartlen and what is OSS?
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an easy question. So we'll do the reverse order. OSS is a brainchild of mine, and it's been part of me for about 15, 20 years. Retired law enforcement. I got out of policing about 2 years ago. Yeah, about 2 years ago. I've always wanted to do what OSS is doing, but obviously it's two worlds that aren't allowed to mix. You can't be in law enforcement and then dabble in the security world. But once I got out, I had the great opportunity to do some teaching here in Fredericton. And it also gave me that opportunity to get it started. So OSS, which stands for Overwatch Specialty Service, is a collection of recently retired police officers. And we work pretty much predominantly for government agencies, where the way we look at it is, depending on the situation, whatever it is, the severity of it is more than just what regular security could offer, but the threat level hasn't triggered law enforcement involvement. So there's a very small gray area that rests in the world where, again, you need more training than just what security can give you, but it's not enough to call the police. So we fit in that band, and we're about a year and a half, going on 2 years now. It's doing well. There are 4 different facets to the company. The security side has been up and running for the most. And then with XpertVR, you guys are definitely kickstarting the education department. And the education department of OSS, or what we effectively call in-house is OSS Ed, is the continual post-academy training for law enforcement and first responders. So what we deal with is we help train or help hone the skills or offer new skills to officers who are currently working. So they've already done their academy, their X amount of years, everything from brand new to 15, 20, 30 years on the force, everything from firefighters, paramedics, police officers, corrections, anyone who's on the front line, any first responder. We have a series of training opportunities for them to enhance their skills, de-escalation, dealing with the media, just a myriad of skills that were initially taught at the academy or not taught at all, and you learn them on the streets. And then it's like anything else. Some of these skills are perishable, and if you don't use them, and then all of a sudden it's sprung on you, it can either go really well or really bad. We'll use the example of media. Sometimes I've watched frontline officers who are amazing frontline officers get involved in a situation where the media is called out to it, and then they're caught flat-footed, no officer pun intended, dealing with the media. And sometimes it is painful to watch, painful, which is why law enforcement will have a dedicated media officer, because there's an art to talking to journalists. There's an art to talking with a camera in your face. Can't tell too much. You can't tell too little. No offense, I'm not poking any holes here, but journalism, as we've all seen, is more about clicks and likes and getting things out there, not always getting them right. My father's a retired Mountie and used to always say that the media would get the Lord's Prayer wrong if they knew it. So you have to be aware of what you're saying at all times. So we just offer a series of training to be able to teach guys or officers how to deal with that. And that's just one little facet. The other facet that has us so excited, and I'm sure I'm jumping on some of your questions, is what you guys offer. I've been searching for this. I know we've chatted a couple times, and this is sort of a repeat story, but for anyone who's listening, I've been searching for someone who understands the potential of virtual reality, augmented reality in higher education, in the training process. I teach the Police Foundations course, and it's all remote. So trust me when I say I know sometimes the perils of remote teaching, where you're just on a very flat screen and you're death by PowerPoint. I've seen it in my face, and I teach it. I've seen it in the face of some of my students. So I've always said, if there is a way to immerse yourself into the learning, how do we do that? Well, it's there. It exists. It's virtual reality. So it's not always playing ping pong, playing golf, shooting your friends from the other side of the continent. Although that's there, a lot of this technology comes from the education side, and then it fans out to the play world. But the basis of a lot of this technology comes from training, training pilots, training military, training the people who need it. And then by the time we and the general public get it, it's been commercialized into games. So I turned around and said, okay, well, there has to be someone who realizes the potential of it so that I can dole it out and add it into our training regime to help an officer. And if throughout let's say the company exists for another 20 years, if I can say at the end of that 20 years that our training helped one officer get home at the end of the shift, as opposed to a knock on the door from a senior officer telling a mother or a wife or a husband that their partner didn't make it home, well worth all of it. So that search, although I was continuing it, landed on your guys' door. And then the more I talked with you, the more excited I got. I'm a horrible poker player, and I think when I first was chatting with you guys, I think you could probably tell that my face just lit up. I was elated that not only did you guys see the potential, but you've seen it at its infancy. You've been at this 3 times as long as the company's been around. So it's not a matter of partnering with someone who's hitting the ground running. It's partnering with a company, and we get the opportunity to run and catch up to where you guys are. So we are so excited to be part of this and to roll it out. Even just you guys being here in Fredericton, we had the opportunity to have a great meal last night. 2 or 3 times throughout the meal, I was getting messages or texts like, "The VR guy's still there? When do we get the opportunity to see this? Is it as good as you thought it was? When can we come to the office tomorrow? So the excitement level is there from in my world as well. And now to be able to have it in our own backyard and to play with it and to roll it out eventually to the officers that we want, I can't say enough good about it.
Well, we'd love to hear it, because we're just as excited, and like seeing your passion for it, because there's so many people that we go to, and they might see the power for it, but they don't want to put in the work to like learn how the technology works and to see how they can take what they currently have as a course or training activity and put it into VR. And so we might be ahead in the technology side, but you're miles ahead on the content expert side of things, and pairing those two together.
Yeah, and no, it's gonna be a fun time, and it's gonna be interesting to pull up this interview, pull up this podcast in 5 years. When you guys are worth 40 billion. And we've got a slew of students who are just knocking on the door to learn this, and then what the technology is going to be in that time as well. But to look back and say, yeah, we were at this infancy stage, just how beneficial it's going to be.
For sure. And definitely want to dive into some of those topics a little bit more, but to take a step back and just talking about, I know for myself and for Drew and others on the team, we're so excited about this because of our experience going through different education systems growing up and into college and everything. I'm curious yourself, like, what was your education experience like growing up, and has that influenced like why you wanted to work at Eastern College or why you want to do this training today?
That's a good question. And I'd say there's probably there's truth in a lot of what you said. I'm 53, so I went through the Canadian education system just like anyone else in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Raised in Ontario, so I went through the education system there. Good little rote student. You sit, you memorize, you regurgitate. Then when it came to university, it broadened a bit of the horizon. Then the next big education aspect would have been decades after that into the academy, the police academy. Great learning curve there, a lot of hands-on, utilizing more than just paper. Books and again the regurgitation, although you have to have that, you have to know the law before you can enforce it, but there was a lot of hands-on, a lot of simulations, but like actual simulations, but it's learning through more than just one trait. We all know that the studies have said emphatically that if you can use more than one physical trait to learn, it enhances how well you absorb it. So you see it, you write it, you hear it. If you're in a profession where you can, whatever sense you can use, the more, the better. So then we get into after policing. It's in policing and in nowadays in the 20th century, a lot of it is continuing your education. You're always on course. So you would see the good courses where there would be that interaction, and then some of the more dry ones, which would be the death by PowerPoint that we spoke of. So you learn what works for you. I'm a very tactile and a kinesthetic learner. Old school. I have my book. I'll pay attention as much as I can in the class. I'll take notes. I'll go back to wherever. I'll leaf through my notebook. I'm a big cue card guy. Write everything and learn that way.
Right.
When I got into Eastern College, we shifted because COVID was just starting. I've actually little pop a video blurb. Robb Hartlen has never taught physically in Eastern College's classrooms, not once. I started when COVID started. I'm down to part-time now because the company is taking more of my time. Never taught once in the classroom because everything went remote, and now the course is fully remote. So I see the enhanced difficulties that offers. And I see it in the students as well. You can connect. Like I can connect with you right now. I can connect with Drew. I can connect with whoever's in the room. Humans are a very social creature. So there are verbal and nonverbal cues that we all use. It's difficult on a two-dimensional screen. You have to work harder to connect with a student, who in turn has to work harder as a student to absorb that. God bless Zoom, God bless Teams and all the rest of them, but sometimes they're brutally painful. And there are so many distractions outside of a screen. I just have a small screen in my office, and it is what it is. And there's every other distraction around you. So that's what sort of pushed going into, there has to be something better. There has to be, especially in a remote world, there has to be something that you can enhance how you learn, how you absorb the material. And again, I think we sort of come right back full circle again. As we go through the generations, there's always a little bit more technology. The young kids nowadays don't have that, at least some of the ones that I've seen, don't have the anchor or the dependency on textbooks like I had. They can learn off of a screen. so I'm still set in my old school ways. But when you enhance it with, and again, to swing it back to the virtual reality, because that is a progression of how I've seen things going through a learning curve. I look back and think how beneficial a virtual reality could be literally at the academy stage, after the academy, in some courses, in even in high school or university, to immerse yourself into the subject that you're learning. I don't know how difficult or how easy it would be if your maths or your sciences, but some of your humanities, some of your to immerse yourself in that subject.
Huge.
You become what you're studying. And it's that connective aspect. And to take this and parlay it even just into, if we just stuck with just pure education, just the pure college aspect, to be able to go from just seeing flat screens, flat faces on a screen, to being able to don a headset and trick your brain into seeing things in 3D. I think that connectivity would spike, and you would have that connection that is so lacking in a remote world, in a post-COVID world.
Oh, for sure. Like we reference a PwC study all the time, and one of the stats in there is that people in VR are 3.75 times more emotionally connected to the content than if they're in a e-learning or regular classroom space. So the studies prove it.
Yeah, because you're still giving the same information. So at the end of the day, you're still receiving A, B, C, D, and E. You have to learn that, no matter what your field is, to move on and be able to effectively take what I've learned, process it, and then either apply it or relearn or reteach it to somebody else.
Right.
But if in that process, you're just like you said, like 3 times, like some of the stats that you guys told us when that first call, to the point after the call, we were like, the numbers are too big, like thousands of percentages. Like and we did some more research, and we're like, if anything, they were undercutting the effectiveness of this type of technology. And I don't want to sound grandiose. I don't want to sound like this is a pitch, but to me, this type of technology is on scale to major shifts in education. And I'm talking coming from where we were effectively storytellers to writing down our stories, to taking those written stuff, and now you have mass production of the spoken word, being able to take your stories and then on paper and then go from there. This is just almost a next logical step in that progression of education.
You're able to recreate
exactly what and then again pull yourself into what it is you're learning. And if you're hands-on, if it's everywhere you look, all your senses, everything is being utilized by this, how could you not learn better? How could you not learn better? How could you not learn the subject at a faster rate, at a higher rate of retention, understanding it? So it's to me, it's just that next step, and someone's doing it, so perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And to pull it back into EMS or policing specifically, you're talking at the academy, like the hands-on side is done very well, but then like the de-escalation side maybe has something lacking, or those like soft skills. And I'm just thinking we're sitting here and all of your personality around us with the Star Wars, like how much do you think that personality and soft skills like plays into policing? And then I guess talking about training and broadly around that.
Well, I think it's you are who you are. And when you, especially in the world of policing, it's different in some of the other first responders. Everybody loves firefighters. So when they wake up from their nap at the station and have their snack and work out and wash the truck, everybody loves to see a firefighter. So sometimes you can have either a sour personality, or you can rest a little bit more on the laurels of everybody loves a firefighter. Same as paramedics. They're there to help out. Law enforcement's a little bit different. Law enforcement, we unfortunately, everyone we see is at their worst day ever. If you think about all the calls that we go to, that's what it is. Someone is having the worst day ever in their life, and that's all we see. So to have that ability to be not only empathetic but professional, but be preventative, be aware of your situation, be aware of the dangers and the pitfalls in it. Have all of that, but then still be able to communicate and still be able to chat. So that's a sort of a long way of saying your personality in policing is important. And I've said it to my students, I've said it to new police officers throughout the year that I've worked with. You have to learn how to communicate. And if you don't, well, then you really better have a really strong grasp on the material, because that's all you have left to fall on. And sometimes people want that ability to talk. They want that ability to they want to tell you the story of why you're here. So yeah, it's great to have either a good personality or that ability to, but if you don't, then you have to have something else to rest on, or you better have a second shirt because it's going to get torn off you.
Right.
Which is it happens no matter who you are. But utilizing technology to help you gain those skills, and the safety of practicing those skills in an environment, if you think about it, an environment that encourages failure. It encourages you to make a mistake in that world so you don't make it again in the real world. That's what I really like about it. At the academy, there's a lot of rush as well. Like we had 30 some odd people in my academy class, and you try to fire them all through in an event. That takes up a lot of time.
And are those normally, like from what we've heard, kind of like mock scenarios?
It's exactly what they are. Yeah, they hire actors. The actor's given a parameter to work with, and it's still human. So if you're putting 30 people through, sure, the first few are going to be everyone's all excited and ready to go. But by the time you've done the same thing 30 times, you're going to be probably not in the same mind frame that you were. The energy level has to be going down. And that's when everything is working well. There's also other courses where you have to rely on your own partner. So if you and I were partnered up and we're at a course learning de-escalation or learning how to deal with someone who's going through a mental health issue, well, now turn to your partner. They're going to be the person who is suffering from schizophrenia, or they're having a manic state, or addictions, or alcoholism, or homelessness. Well, it's difficult yes, we can read about it in a book, but it's difficult to say, okay, all of a sudden I'm Robb the police officer, or I'm Robb the firefighter, or Robb whatever, and now now I have to absorb that whole identity and then effectively role play it with my partner, and then 20 minutes later we're going to do the same thing. Well, that's difficult, because there are some times where you don't have the actors who know the background.
Right.
So if you can train in a system where that's all it knows, that's it. That's all it knows is what's been programmed, what's been given to it. Yes, there's play in your scenarios, but its whole existence is to teach you how to effectively deal with this situation. We ran through a couple of the scenarios yesterday, and what I liked about it is there is no straight line in some of these calls, especially, and we'll use de-escalation as an example. There is no straight line where you can walk in and you pull out a card and I'm going to say this, and then I say this, and then I say that. Thank you very much. And then let's go, and we hug, and you leave. It doesn't work in the real world. And that's what I liked about some of the scenarios that we went through with the equipment, is it wasn't this linear path. It was there are decisions you have to make, and your personality is reflected on how you answer and how you go, and the whole scenario can go this way or turn back, or you can back it up, or you can completely fall apart, and things can fall apart fast. When you do that in the real world, someone's going to get hurt. So if you can practice it in a safe, well-regulated, full energy all the time scenario, why not make the mistakes? Why not try? So, okay, well, what happens if I do this? What happens if I'm having a bad day, I come to yet another call, and I say something wrong? Maybe I'm not as empathetic. Maybe I'm just a little too short. I've had a bad day at the house. I spilled coffee all over me, and now we're on the fourth call where it's almost the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And you say something with a bit of a tone. Well, what happens then? Well, you can't test that out in the real world. You can test it out in these training scenarios, and you can see how fast it goes, so that it's all muscle memory. You do things over and over and over again, and you learn from those mistakes. And that's what I really like about it, is that ability to learn from these mistakes. So now when you're out on the road, it's already in the back of your mind. You're like, well, no, I know what happens if I do this. Okay, well, let's try this way. Let's try that way. And again, if it helps everybody get home, if it helps safely deal with with the individual who's having a rough day, and that helps them safely make it to a safe spot, a hospital, dealing with maybe with a family member who come in and help take care of the situation. And at the same time, you and your partner go home at the end of the night, then that's the goal. That's the goal. That's always been the goal. And this is another tool that the first responding world can use to get home and talk to their family about it.
For sure. And I guess along those same lines, like looking at the police academy or the continuous training that's done, curiosity, like we were talking about yesterday, we're always trying to improve and look at other areas we can go at XpertVR. And I guess this is a question for the audience as well. What other areas outside of those, like soft skills, de-escalation, do you see moving forward with virtual reality that would be a great addition?
What I would, in a perfect world, if I could write a script and say, here's a program, this is what I would like to be the perfect program, is right now we're limited by the technology insofar as you have options, you choose your option, and it moves on. I know right now people are all, some camp loves artificial intelligence, and another camp is terrified, and Chat GPT is going to take over the world, and it's Cyberdyne or the end of times. I would like to see the inclusion of an artificial intelligence or of some form of computing, so some of the scenarios run a little smoother, where it really picks how you interact, how you deal with things. And I can see even just VR technology from 5 years ago, the leaps and bounds that it's what it's. So I do see that potential coming up, and then I also see things that the stuff that I don't even know is available or will be available. That blows my mind as well, what it's going to look like in another 5 or another 10 years. So what would I like to see different, or what would I like to see is, I'd like to see an inclusion of an intellect to drive some of these scenarios almost in a real world time. So the interaction with some of and I'm just thinking in a policing aspect. There is a lot of that in the firefighters one, the one you guys showed us with the room clearing, and that's an immediate. That's the sort of thing I'm looking for on a police side, because it is an immediate response to something you've done causes this, which causes this, which causes that. In some of the police scenarios, it was you pick this, and then you pick that, and then you pick this, and you pick that, and it works very, very well. But the smoothness of it, without the step, I find sometimes if it's step, you lose the suspension of disbelief. So you can, if you don't have that, and you know that as you say something, it's the computer or whatever is responding to that. It's just another level of immersion into the scenario.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I guess with that training, like you were talking about, everyone loves firefighters and paramedics. Yep. And then obviously over the past couple of years, there's been a lot around like defund the police and things along those lines. Like, what things do you think is it that need to change for to have that better?
Well, that's a loaded question. Yeah. I've said this to. I was still policing when that foolishness notion of defund the police came about, and the way I look at it is, watch a Mad Max movie. Watch any post-apocalyptic movie where law enforcement isn't there. We as humans do not have that ability. It's not sunshine and puppy dogs and everybody hugging and getting along. It's not. There is a fine line between order and chaos, and that line, on top of that line, rests law enforcement. So instead of defunding, which I'm glad that we don't hear that as much, and I'm not in policing anymore, so I can really say what I really believe. So instead of defunding the police, let's change some of the training and utilize some of the money better. Trust me, you need law enforcement in your life. When it's not there, things are not going to go well for the society that you live in. So if there's a segment of the population that doesn't like how it's being done, great. How do we change that? Let's utilize funds differently to training. There are some, out of that discussion, were some points that I did agree with, though. I'm not blanket defund the police. Well, no, you're silly. Instead, there are times like, okay, yes, I can see that if there's a budget of 100, let's say 100% of your budget, your training budget, and 80% of it is use of force. Well, then you are going to have a police officer 80% of the time will use a use of force. And trust me, most of that time is needed. Well, then let's change the training where they are effectively trained in the use of force, but at the same time also effectively trained in how to stop that situation, or how to better equip an officer when they're making that choice. If you have that, even just for a couple seconds, to change that narrative from use of force to use of your words. And I know at the same time, people throw around the term de-escalation as if it's in a pouch on your belt and you just pull it out and, oh, good, here's my de-escalation button. It's a fine art to learn how to de-escalate a situation, how to effectively deal with a human who is having a rough time. And not everybody can do it. Whereas it's the same thing as not everybody can play the guitar. Not everybody can sing. Not everybody, but you can learn how to become better at something.
Sure.
So maybe what we need to do is rethink our training budgets, rethink what are the important aspects, and then from there have an officer who has the ability to protect himself and the public, but at the same time they have the tools as well, not just a use of force tool, but again an ability to talk in a situation, an ability to, okay, let's give that another opportunity to not have to go hands-on. If you're pushed into it, great. You're well trained. Again, you're going to go home. Your partner's going home. But there is an opportunity for additional training as well as the training that's given at the academy level. So, which is again we sort of hooked back around to, okay, well, why isn't someone doing it? Well, we are, and that's what we
about to go in. And actually, I don't know how much you want to share, because I know there's lots of things in the planning phases, but curious to talk on some of the programs that you're trying to plan around that training aspect that OSS can provide that builds that next layer of de-escalation or other skills. We've chatted, like right now within OSS, I think at last count, we're sitting around somewhere around 315 or 300, between 315 and 330 years of policing in all of us. And that is everything from municipal policing, federal policing, RCMP, military police. So we have staff from all walks of the police world. And we're expanding. We also have firefighters and paramedics. They how can I word that? They offer a different perspective. But in the policing aspect, we have a lot of years of experience. So when we sit and chat and talk about what is it that we can do
to enhance the training that we want to give, we sit down and we chat as a group. And a lot of it is, and a lot of it does come back to, you got to learn to talk better. You have to learn to be able to see some of the signs and be able to effectively communicate. But at the same time, knowing that in a split second, that conversation can stop and it can turn deadly. So that's always there as well. But how do you give those skills? So, and I know I'm dancing around your question a little bit because there are some things that we are planning on doing that are not right there yet. So I don't want to tip or show our hand, which I guess that's a wrong analogy. But yeah, we are taking all of our experience and creating programs that, oh geez, I wish I had this. I wish we could have done this. I wish we could have done that. And trust me, the spectrum of guys we have are not, although I may be a more left-leaning police officer, trust me, we have guys who are very right-leaning. And all this talking is foolishness. This is what we need to do. Well, when you get the opportunity, and sometimes that's lacking in 2023, you may not agree with me and I may not agree with you, but at least let's hear what each one has to say. I'm not going to convince you that I'm right, and you're not going to convince me that you're right. But what we may do is, with this dialogue, realize that there is a middle ground that neither of us knows exists, and now we can take that, and that's going to benefit the next group. So some of these conversations, that's what we have. You're too lenient, you're too strict. It has to be just this. Well, no, why not that? So then when you get 5, 6, 7 guys in a conversation where everyone's open, you're able to say whatever you want. You can pick and choose the benefits, and that's what gets pulled out and put aside. Okay, this is what we're going to build on. Back to the conversation. Oh, great. Back over here. There's so you create your programs through these conversations. Not only the retired guys, we also have the conversations with current officers as well. Because even in the 2 years that I've been out, the world's changing a little bit.
Sure.
How people treat law enforcement, how law enforcement are perceived, everything from uniform changes to what gear they carry. And then I said earlier, my dad was a retired police officer. I think back to when he was a police officer, he went in at 58 and out in 85 or 86. Like Dad says, he doesn't even recognize policing to what it is now. So yeah. So, and we have that ability to talk to all these guys. And again, we're creating lesson plans. Now we flush them out, and then we will offer them out and go from there. And we're not the end all be all. It's just another opportunity to get a little bit of training to give you a better opportunity in the streets.
For sure. And I guess to keep it broad as well, then not to dive into any of the specific programs you're looking at, how do you picture in the future an ideal training schedule for police officers? Obviously, they go through the academy, and what do you picture that like? Is it you come in for a 2-week course with OSS? Is there every week you have modules that you can go do, or how?
No, I would the way we see it as again, it's all post academy. The academies, the 6 academies in the country, do a great job. I'm an APA grad, so kudos out to them. We've got instructors. Some of the instructors are still there, and some of their lessons are still ingrained in me. So I definitely tip my hat to everybody at all their different police academies. What I see is we're part of that continual education after the fact. There's only so much time, and there's only so many people. So to say, we're going to come in and every other week you're going to learn, it's not going to happen. It's not. I'd love to, but there's just not enough time for that. The guys, they work hard enough as it is in their shifts. They still want to be able to have some time with their family and their own lives. What I do see it as, listen, your officers. You know that the guys who are really good at speaking, do you need to send them to a de-escalation course? Probably not, but you also know that there are some that do. So send them over to us, join us for a week or two. We'll give you the courses that we have, and then we'll send you back to your department. A couple hours a night or a few. We do have plans for actual modules where you're in training for a couple days. So there's different ways to do it. It's almost like a refresher. Use of force is refreshed once a year. Why not some of your verbal skills as well? You have to be able to effectively utilize the tools on your belt. Well, why not utilize the tool that's, again, noodling around between your ears? Because you're going to use that more than you're going to use anything else. But at the same time, also know that the pitfalls of what you say can also get you in trouble as well. And I've said that to some of my students numerous times. The ability to talk yourself into or out of trouble rests in how you speak and what you say.
Right. No, makes a lot of sense. I guess to do a full 180 here, always like to have like a little bit of fun just talking about XR, and obviously you've been playing with virtual reality just outside of things. So for people that are hearing you talk about virtual reality and they're really curious how they can use it in policing or just in education in general, how would you recommend like getting in for the first time? Is there any like games that you would say, hey, download these games so you can just experience VR? Or would you recommend getting into an education setting first?
For the whole purpose is education?
Yeah, just they can be a professor at a university or college or at a police academy, and they're just hearing this and they're like, I'm curious about VR. I want to experience it for the first time. And,
I said, and I think you and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. I've been involved in VR since, in my mind, some of its infancy stage. Like, I don't know if you remember way back when you'd take your cell phone and you'd clip it into a headset, and it'd be grainy and give you headaches and you couldn't see and your eyes watered, but it was awesome. Limited, but awesome. And now we're 5, 6, 7, 8 years later. I put on the headset that you guys provide. And I find myself, I'm still back in that 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago with that wow factor where I'm looking around. And I even took the headset off and I was like, oh, we're back to the real world again. So if you've never utilized virtual reality, and it's difficult for me, especially in this environment, to say, well, it's got to be 100% professional all the time. No, you have to have some fun. If not, what's the point? Like, you're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to be any good on the streets. You're not going to be any fun for the guys you're working with and the family you're dealing with. So if you want to experience it, jump on and download some of the games. There's some super easy games that are designed to introduce you to the world of virtual reality. And if you have never seen it, something as simple as the one I always in my head go back to is, can I mention actual companies?
Yeah.
So Netflix, their interface for their virtual reality is amazing. Why? Well, you put the headset on and now all of a sudden you're in a chalet. And the big monstrous screen and the roaring fire, and you look around and you're looking out to the mountains. They didn't need to do all that. You could be really in whatever, but they understand the experience of virtual reality. And if someone's never experienced it, and if they never do, they won't have that visceral reaction that at least I have when I immerse myself into that world, because you are immersing yourself into a whole other world. The real world is you're blocked from it from your view, and everything you see is whatever is being presented to you. So jump on and play a ping pong game, play a golf game. Some of them are a little more complex. That's a little difficult, and the frustration level can definitely be up there. The learning curve for some can be a little steep, but talk to the people talk to your family, talk to your son, talk to your brother, someone who has a VR set, a buddy, throw it on and let them walk you through it. It works well for play. It's amazing for games. Well, then why would it not be amazing to learn? Because really, if you think about it, that's all games are. Problem solving, figuring out what to do. in the middle of a big quest. Really, all games are, it could be baseball, it could be football, it could be strategy. They all sort of are the same element. And that's all education is. Figuring out a problem, how do you do it, taking all of the factors that you need to come to that regular decision. You just do it in a much more colorful and a much more imaginative setting. So yeah, I would say put on a headset. Yeah. Talk to someone who already has it. Watch what your hands look like. See what it looks like when you're just in some of the meta ones, just your main screen. There was one I put on, I think it's still on mine right now. You are above a Mexican mesa. I think you're probably 400 or 500 feet up, looking down at this big open space. And it freaked out my son. Like he's like, nope, I can't do that one. I can't be in that just because it seems so real.
Yeah.
So even just to put on the headset, if you've never done it before, I would say just throw one on just to even have an inkling of what it is we're talking about.
For sure. And talking about the home environments in Meta, I'll have to show you later today or send a link to you. There's a bunch of Star Wars homes that you can get on side quests. I know I have the Rancor pit from Jabba's Palace.
Okay, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And all kinds of ones. So we got those installed.
Perfect.
Too.
Yeah.
But I guess continuing along that train of Meta, like something that a lot of educators and police that we talk with, they're worried about Meta as like a company and having a monopoly here, as well as just the privacy around the headsets. Obviously at XpertVR, we make sure anything that is data-wise is stored on an AWS server that's in Canada and secure here and following all of those standards. But curious if you have any thoughts or opinions around Meta as a company in general and where they are in the hold they have on the VR space.
Where there's monopolies everywhere you look. In Canada alone, there's monopolies on our information that we share. There's monopolies on the cell phone use. And I'm not trying to come off as some conspiratorial nut job, but they are. It's just a fact of life. Sometimes the bigger companies have a better opportunity to keep stuff safe. I had an old sergeant who said to me once that a lock on a door, the only purpose is to keep an honest person honest. Someone wants to get your stuff, they're going to get your stuff. I don't care how good you protect it. I don't care how advanced your technology is. The minute you develop something, you're 4 steps behind the guys who have figured out how to criminalize it. So, no, I'm not worried about that. It is what it is. I carry a cell phone around. I got a big chuckle, sort of off topic here a little bit, with people where they're worried that the government's tracking them, or they're worried about this, and they say it all as they're punching in stuff online. Oh, this is nothing but a massive tracker. It's for everything. Your data is a commodity worth more than your money. Be aware. Take the steps to protect yourself. Take the steps that are available to keep your information safe, your identity safe, your money safe. But you can't. I look at this. You can't live in fear. Because then if you live in fear, then you're going to miss life. So yeah, the big companies, it is what it is. There's always going to be a big company, but I look at it this way. If there's a massive company, like I almost call them Facebook, like Meta, there's a reason that Zuck and all the rest of them are dumping the billions of dollars into this, because they see the potential. Yes, the potential is to make more money, but there's got to be something. There's the pet rock industry doesn't exist anymore because there's no money in it. So the fact that they're dumping all the money into this, to me, that says, oh no, there's another wave coming. They see that potential 10 steps beyond anything I could even imagine.
Sure.
So they're going to get in on that ground floor. Well, perfect, not a problem. I'll stay as close to possible as that wave, and if it helps me again, they do all the work, and I can take it and make it my own, and then train someone else. Okay, Zuck, good job. Yeah.
And as HTC or Apple or any of these companies, they come out, then there's more competition. You
That's right.
switch if
Yep.
you prefer. Yeah.
Yeah, I am interested. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it yet? The new Apple, their headset, is that even released yet?
June is the rumors, right?
Okay. So it'll be interesting to see. And what that does, like you said, it steps up the game to the next guy. And then it steps up the games to the next guy. So yeah, we'll see what happens. We were talking yesterday a little bit about the treadmills. When I first started looking at them, you looked at the price, like, oh, no, thank you anyways, $25,000-$30,000. Well, that same $25,000-$30,000 piece of technology has 6 other people or 6 other companies who are, okay, well, I'll create it for 10. Well, I'll create it for 5. Well, I'll create it for 4. And the same technology rolls through. If anything, it's getting better because competition will drive down the price, but also increase what you're getting.
Yes.
So
Bloody up in price.
that's right. Yeah. So, hey, perfect. If they didn't see the benefit for it, they wouldn't be in it. So the fact that we're here right now, the fact that we're talking about this, there is a potential. So let's run with it and see where it takes us.
For sure. Couldn't agree more. And getting near the end here, I like to do these like rapid fire questions and have
Okay.
other
All right.
questions, but
Let's do this.
I guess first, is there any other topics that I missed or that you'd want to talk on?
No, I think that's not without either losing my job or no, let's not go there.
All right. Well, we'll go into the rapid fire questions then. So basically, I'll say one word and you say the word that comes to mind first.
Oh, word association.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, geez.
All right. So pop culture,
Dangerous.
conference or conferences.
Fun.
Don't know if you have an opinion on this one, but Unity or Unreal?
Unity or Unreal?
Yeah, they're the 2 main game engines.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, okay. Unreal.
Unreal.
Oh yeah, that was the new Unreal. Oh yeah, what they can do with that.
Incredible. Yes,
Yeah.
Another one, don't know, we haven't talked about this one at all, but educational NFTs.
You're talking about the non-fungible tokens. I'm in the Warren Buffett camp.
Okay.
So I do see the potential of it, but I also, I see I should have bought Bitcoin back in the early 2000s. I don't think it's a fad. I think it's more than a fad. But
Still needs a fight.
it's still, it needs someone besides Kevin O'Leary back in it. Yeah.
Agreed. The metaverse.
Oh, just in its infancy. We haven't even scratched what that's going to offer.
Agreed. Education.
Continual, and it should be fun.
Love it. Favorite book.
That's favorite book. That's a good one. There's 4 that are rolling through Salem's Lot, Hunt for Red October, the very first Jack Reacher, because I found it was we're both big. In the book, Jack Reacher is a hideous creature who's an amazing cop. That Tom Cruise foolishness, that's not Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher is not 5'6". But the first Jack Reacher, Lee's first Jack Reacher book is pretty impressive too.
I'll have to read it. Similarly, favorite movie.
Oh, well, we can say the better question is, do I like the first 3, the abomination of the Hayden Christensen stuff. My favorite movie, actually, to be honest, my number 1, Shawshank Redemption.
Okay. Yeah.
Number 2, Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good number 1.
Yeah, a little diverse. It's like my music choice. Yeah. We'll go on road trips and people are like, no, we're not listening to Robb's, because it's everything from pop to country to weird to, so yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm like Forrest Gump's my favorite movie, and then like Braveheart, and then I don't know, for whatever reason, I know you're gonna hate this, Phantom Menace, just like me as a kid.
Yeah.
It was just,
okay, well, it's over now. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Get out of my house. So talking about that though, I did some of the shows, and if we have a couple minutes here. Yeah. some of the shows that Favre like the Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, some of these ones, the fact that they are allowing some of the mistakes, some of the, like Jar Jar Binks, like Phantom Menace, like the Hayden Christensen, how they hated on that poor guy for what he did, and rightfully so to a degree.
Yeah.
But bringing him back and what they've done now is unbelievable. What they've done for the character, or for the individual who was Jar Jar Binks, and I think he was one step away from almost killing himself. To turn around and give him that opportunity, like they did in the was it Mandalorian? Yeah. Yes, and gave him that opportunity, and how appreciative and how loved. It's like a Brendan Fraser Star Wars edition.
Right.
I do like seeing that. So I do like, although I don't care what you say, I'm not going to like those 3 movies. And I'm not a fan of Jar Jar Binks, although I do say he is a Jedi, and I don't think he gets enough respect.
Or is he a Sith?
Or is he a Sith? Yeah. Or is he a Sith? I would like to see that storyline expanded. It's, yeah. I'll agree to disagree. Yeah. Can we cut out his answer? Do we have to? Yeah. Can we dub in that?
And then the last one on the rapid fire, non-rapid fire. Latest news in VR XR that you've heard about that being really intriguing. We talked about the treadmills. We talked about Apple. It's one of those.
I was reading there's a company out of, I think it's Arizona, that are developing a more responsive glove. And some of the stuff, and I was watching a short little video on it, and it's a video. Obviously, they're going to make it look the best. But the dexterity, and sometimes that is what's lacking. And I noticed it. One of the guys who worked with me, who was with us yesterday, never used VR before, and I noticed it when he was trying to pick something up. Now, if you do it more, you can realize that humans will connect like this. With the VR world, sometimes you don't have to have that direct. But he was clunking the controllers together, and I remember back at the beginning just how because you don't see it in your head, so you'll hit the guards and all the rest of that. And I've always thought that a haptic suit, or the ability to be a little more dexterous, would enhance the world. And I'm talking like dexterity it's like fine tuning your fine motor skills. So when I stumbled across it, I was like, oh, well, let's see what they're doing. So that's pretty exciting. And again, it's another company that sees the benefits of some of the periphery to bring it in to make it the whole experience better.
For sure. Yeah, we were down at CES 3 years ago now, I guess, and trying out all the different gloves, and it was really cool to see where they're heading. They weren't quite there yet, but there was one, and it was just like a regular glove. There's no like big attachments on it or anything, but it had electrodes running through it so that it could activate the muscles within your hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they had me in this warehouse where I was opening boxes with a box cutter.
Yeah.
And on the third one, it like makes you slip up.
Yeah.
And you cut across the top of your hand. And
you could,
I swear it felt like I cut the top of my hand with a box cutter.
Wow.
Like the rest of the week I was just staring at it like, did that actually happen? And so, no, very excited about it.
Yeah. And we're talking about this, and I know that my son will, hey Reed, I know that he's going to be listening to this, and he will hear about these gloves the same way that when I think about a computer glove, I think about the Nintendo glove. You remember that? You put it on, and I saw one at a pawn store. Where was I? I think it was downtown Toronto. And I was like, oh, I should so buy that. Useless, but I should. But we're looking at this type of technology the same way he's now looking at this. It's just that continuation of the technology. And then my father, who turns 84 this year, no time for it. No time. I tried to put him on the plank game, and he didn't like that. I tried to put him on a roller coaster once. It's just, nope, thank you very much. So as the generations go through, you embrace it, or you don't. So you can't force somebody. What you can do is get a hold of us, and we'll train you.
There you go.
And we'll give you that opportunity to be a better ping pong player, and at the same time be a better cop.
for sure. Awesome. And yeah, I guess wrapping up with my final 3 questions or statements. Number 1, who should we have on the podcast next? Anyone come to mind?
Ooh. You know what I'd like to hear, and I know you guys touched on it a couple of weeks a little bit. I would like to hear, and we talked sort of one of the questions I asked you guys yesterday about it. VR in mental health, how that's being used. I know that there are programs, you guys have showed us a little bit, in the hard medical science of it, the fact that you can use VR to explore the human body, but how is it being used in Alzheimer's? How's it being used in dementia? How's it being used to help combat ADHD? How's it being used to train your brain in a better way? So some of that aspect of virtual reality, I'd really like to. I'd sit there, some popcorn and watch that to hear what is coming. Okay. But we know what's happening now, but what's coming, because there's always someone who's, even right now, someone's listening to this and they're 5 steps ahead of us. Yes. So who is that? What's coming down the pipe? How are we going to use this technology for the betterment? And I speak to it from the heart because Mom suffered from Alzheimer's. So how can it help a family and help a patient who's suffering from Alzheimer's or some of these debilitating diseases? Because it has to be. Technology goes hand in hand with making our lives better, which is why Dad's still 84, which is why X amount of years ago, I'm not saying it correlates, but as technology gets better, our life becomes easier and we live longer. So yeah, what's coming down the pipe? That would be interesting.
Yeah, we can definitely make that happen. I can think of a few people. And it's a great topic to talk about. Then obviously we talked a lot about OSS and the current projects you're working on. But is there anything else you'd like to say or plug, or anywhere people should go online to check out more, I guess, as well?
Well, as always, it's the same thing. If you like what you're hearing, you can check us out online. Coming from a social media background, I think I am lacking a little bit in some of our social media pages, but that's also done almost on purpose. But the website's always there. Reach out, give us a call. We can always tell you more of what we're doing, bring you in, show you what we have to offer, and how it can either help your team or your department. So yeah, reach out and say hi.
Perfect. I'll make sure to have all those links in the show notes.
Sure.
Perfect. And then, just last statement. If anyone's here in the deep end with us, make sure to subscribe. And this week that we're recording this is actually a natural disaster week. So if you comment below when it is posted, just comment OSS, and we'll be giving away some of our police or fire simulations in 2D so that you can try them out at home. Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. No, this is great. And for the last little while, I've been sitting at the chair watching it, so it's interesting to be on this side of the microphone. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Really good interview, man. I appreciate that. It was good.
Yeah.
Happy.
Thanks.
Yes. For the Peanut Gallery. Thank you.